This is Dr. Qamar Cheema, and this is my YouTube channel, The New Word with Dr. Cheema. Please do subscribe while watching or after watching the video. Today's topic is very interesting, and that is that the advisor to the National Command Authority, Lieutenant General Mazhar Jamil, gave a lecture or a statement at a seminar which was organized by the Center for International Strategic Studies in Karakoram International University in Gilgit. Normally, these seminars don't happen there, but this is interesting to see that this seminar of the CISS was at the Karakoram International University. I think that is to mainstream the left out areas of Pakistan, because normally the seminars are all either held in Lahore, Karachi, or Islamabad. So this is something which is obviously the many people in the Gilgit-Baltistan would definitely appreciate. But the statement that came from the general was very interesting, and the statement is that Pakistan is countering West-backed Indian military buildup. So this is the National Command Authority, which is basically saying, and you understand that the National Command Authority is a platform which basically looks Pakistan's nuclear program, nuclear assets, and it has the strategic plans division under it. The entire secretariat and the prime minister of the country heads the National Command Authority. So it seems that Pakistan is signaling and giving a very serious message to India, to the world, and to everyone. And normally, if you have heard a statement a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, when the Indian Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar gave a statement, I think at the News 18 conclave in New Delhi, that much of the India's problem with the United States are because of Pakistan. And why India was saying that? Because Indians believe that Pakistan got a military hardware from the United States. And I think General Bajwa, in one of his statement at the Islamabad Security Dialogue, which happened a few months back, he maintained that Pakistan's military hardware or the training that comes from the West. So, but right now he said that Pakistan cannot buy any military hardware from the West either. We do not have the money. Second, it is the Indian pressure. Third, we are no more an ally of the West, so we have challenges for that matter. So, I think the advisor to the National Command Authority gave this statement at this moment when Pakistan believes that Indian military buildup is so much that we cannot compete with it, and how we can compete with this is basically a question mark with a country which doesn't have whose GDP is more than $300 billion, whose foreign exchange reserves are $11 billion, which is facing a serious crisis. The economy is being backed by the IMF and the global financial institutions. Macroeconomic situation is not good. The petroleum prices are very high. So, looking all these things, I think what matters for the Pakistan is that how to match the Indian military buildup, because Pakistan cannot compromise. Although Pakistan has been saying that since India and Pakistan have the nuclear weapons, so strategic stability has been achieved. But yet it is to be decided that who is to, because if a country or adversary goes for a military buildup, you cannot go for a vessel to vessel competition, but you can actually try to have a military capability where you can deter the adversary not to wage a war. So I think Pakistan is keeping that momentum, and that's why Pakistan's nuclear doctrine, I think, says the minimum credible nuclear deterrence. So this is what Pakistan calls. But anyhow, this is very interesting to understand that Pakistanis have spoken on that. And if you remember, back in 2008, the military sales to India was almost zero in 2008. But in 2018, I think the technological and the defense trade between the bilateral defense trade between India and the US has gone to $16 billion. So obviously, this is a win-win situation for Washington and for the Delhi as well. But Pakistan believes that Pakistan will get destabilized with this one factor. The second is that if you go back to 2005, that was the moment when basically the Americans recognized India's nuclear program from a de facto nuclear program to the de jure nuclear program. The reason behind is when Pakistan and India signed the nuclear program, tested the nuclear weapons, Pakistan and India were not the members of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So that, for that matter, we did test the nuclear weapons. We were not part of that, so our nuclear program was not recognized by the international authorities. But in 2005, when India got the civil nuclear technology or civil nuclear deal from the United States, that was a moment where I think the Indian nuclear program was categorized as a de jure nuclear program, because at that time I think the Americans were saying that we'll get some jobs, and this is very necessary to have all that. But I think Pakistan kept on saying that this is a preferential treatment which the United States is giving to the Indian authorities. But anyhow, this is an interesting situation right now. But if you just look at most recently, when India got S-400 from the Russia of $5.2 billion, the Americans didn't do anything to stop that. And if you remember, as per the U.S. Sanctions, there is a U.S. law which is known as Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, known as CARTSA, and there was a debate in the U.S. that we should give a one-time waiver to India. And in the meanwhile, I think the Turkey was also buying, and the U.S. imposed sanctions on Turkey for buying S-400, I think, in January 2021. So it seems that the Biden administration didn't put sanctions on India, but they did take into account what the Turkey was doing. But keeping in mind that India is having this S-400, and then I think the most important factor which many Pakistanis and many people do not understand, and that is of the basic exchange and the cooperation agreement known as the BICA. This is where Pakistan has been saying that this Indo-US strategic convergence is basically, this is a multi-layered defense cooperation between India and the US. And for that matter, if you remember, there is a 2+2 dialogue which is also going. And most recently, the Indian Foreign Minister of External Affairs and the Indian Minister of Defense Rajnath Singh were in Washington, where they met their counterparts. I think in, if I'm not wrong, I was in US by the way at that time, so I was looking that very carefully. Anyhow, this BICA, the Basic Exchange and the Cooperation Agreement, basically has helped India to have defense agreements with India. And the obviously India is at the advantageous position because it is India which is at the receiving end from all that military sales and the military hardware which is going on. So basically, the Indian armed forces have got revolutionized with all that offensive and the defensive capabilities which the Indians will have. So, and if you just look at this BICA, this is very important to find out that BICA is basically this is geospatial intelligence for the military purposes. And the Americans are going to share the with the Indians the classified advanced satellites and topographic data, which includes maps, which includes nautical and aeronautical charts, which includes commercial and other unclassified imagery, and then geographical and geomagnetic, and then the gravity data as well. So it seems that the with this BICA, India is having that advantage which Pakistan cannot have. And then if you just look at another perspective is that because of the BICA, there will be a quantum jump to Indian geographical information system and the management information system capability. And remember that these technologies which will be inducted, which are going to be inducted by the Indian military system, boosts definitely India's accuracy of automated hardware systems and weapons, such as be it the cruise missiles, or be it the ballistic missiles, or be it the armed drones, which India definitely is looking forward for purchasing from the United States. So Pakistan definitely believes that we have been outmaneuvered, we are outsmart by the Indians, because our economic condition doesn't give us that position. For instance, if you remember, the former American ambassador who came in the first Islamabad security dialogue, he gave a statement. He said that Americans will not engage with Pakistan because Pakistani economy is not that high-tech economy that there will be a sort of a connectivity, or there will be sort of understanding between both the countries. And I have been saying it continuously and regularly since many years, that the Pakistan-US relations, which are only dependent on the security paradigm or the security framework, will fall. And we have been saying that this relationship is hanging by a single thread, which can fall any moment. So I think it was Pakistan's need to engage with the US, so that at the end of the day, Pakistan can get a lot of economic, military, strategic support from the US. But since both the countries and Pakistan decided to have a different position in Afghanistan, because Pakistan believed that this suits our national interest. And Pakistan does not sync itself with the Western economies, because our economy doesn't operate that way. We are still dependent on the global financial institutions. So India is far ahead, having $600 billion as a foreign exchange reserve, and we have $11 billion foreign exchange reserve, out of which much of the money has come from the Middle East and the Chinese for keeping that in our central bank. So India definitely have that advantage, and I think this BICA and many other agreements which have done, that is not just for Pakistan. So if Pakistan will say that this is for Pakistan, I think that is a wrong observation. This is for the Chinese, but India will have that an added advantage to use it for Pakistan. So the Americans, if sharing this information and data, Pakistan has been saying to the Americans to be neutral. Well, I think Indian Americans cannot be neutral at the moment, because they believe that the most important and the pertinent or the immediate threat from the United States is rise of China, and that's why this entire Indo-Pacific doctrine have been initiated, be it I to you to, although that is in the Middle East, or Quad, that gives a lot of value to India, because they consider that India is the only capable player in Indo-Pacific that will not stand with the United States in any kind of a military conflict, but that will have India as a partner to manage China. But I'm sure the West or the Americans will not be in a position to use or manage India the way they want, because India is kept itself away as far as its military engagement is concerned. For instance, they don't want to make Quad as a military component, so that is why the Americans or the others, they went for the AUKUS. But anyhow, Islamabad is insecure. That's why the journal gave a statement, and uh, uh, that is where I think the India is having this anti-satellite techniques and technologies, military deployments, and all these things. There's a lot of advantage now in this situation. What the Americans are giving to India, this, for example, the missile warning satellites, which is a serious concern for, I think, the Russians and the Chinese as well. And then, since this BICA has been signed, I think Pakistan has interpreted this as an disadvantage, but unfortunately, Pakistan doesn't have that say. There used to be a time when Pakistan used to call to the Americans to be neutral or to have a balance, but I think now Pakistan have stopped saying to the United States, because American interests are so much tilted towards that. The bilateral trade between the US and India, I think, crosses $113 billion, if I'm not wrong. So the Pakistani policymakers are out of the context for which the Americans and the others are looking. So rather going for the chest thumping and all, doing all that, the Pakistani authorities and the Pakistan need to work economically. That's the only way we can get closer with the US and the others. But and for instance, this US Lockheed Martin announced that they are going to have this fifth geosynchronous space-based infrared system satellite known as SBIRS Geo 5 that they launched in 2021. Now, this missile warning system basically has given or allowed the US Space Force to detect ballistic missile launches all around the world. Now, the operationalization of this SBIRS Geo 5 will definitely give a lot of boost to the global missile race, and that will increase the threat and that will prevent the surgical strike and deploy missiles and the manufacturing facilities. So in my understanding, what I believe is, so most recently when the Indians said that they have fired a missile in Pakistan, and that was accidental. Obviously, that is not accidental. That was something that was coming from with full intention to just check that where does Pakistan's air defense system stand, and where does Pakistan's military capability stands. So I think obviously Pakistan was exposed in that position, and now as far as this SBIRS Geo 5 is concerned, this is basically a clearly a critical early warning information, which the India will have an advantage and Pakistan will be at a disadvantaged position. So this early warning information system, the Indians have S-400 system to detect the ballistic missiles deployed, and obviously Pakistan won't have that facility. Pakistan doesn't have S-400. Pakistan doesn't have this BK agreement. Pakistan doesn't have these things with the. So Pakistan's concerns are obviously very legitimate at that point. But India has been working, I think, since 80s and struggling to manufacture indigenous ballistic missile interceptors, which they have been doing since long. so that they had got into the defense cooperation with the Israelis to purchase these advanced green pine radar systems and ballistic missile propellant and the guiding system. So back in 2017, Indian cabinet, basically the cabinet committee on the security at that time, basically, which is the government's body that looks into the military procurement, they gave an approval of 2.5 billion dollar for purchasing this medium range surface to air missile system from Israel. So this is what Pakistan is saying, that Pakistan is engaged dealing with the West backed military support to the Indians. Uh, Obviously, Pakistan cannot have that in access to the, because Pakistan chose either to go with the Chinese or to take a different position in the region, have a different strategic outlook for the country, have a different strategic perspective over the regional politics. And at the same time, Pakistan wants to stay engaged with the United States. And I think the Pakistani military authorities, over the period of time, you call it GHQ and the Pentagon, they have an excellent relationship, and the relationship should stay because Pakistan have worked and helped the Americans and the other countries to the Pakistan worked together with the West to fight this war against terrorism, and this relationship should continue, and they should work. But obviously there are differences, and because of those differences we are at a distance, and Pakistan decided for having that. But this, obviously, this American military hardware to the India will give a lot of this will basically, we call that will widen the conventional weapons asymmetry between India and Pakistan, and Pakistan will not be in a position in coming years to match that. So at the end of the day, Pakistan is just left with the one choice, and that is China. And I seriously doubt the Chinese efforts to arm Pakistan or to give Pakistan the military access, because I heard that Pakistan wanted some superior aircrafts, but they didn't give us. So they gave us J-10C. We asked for J-20C, I think. But so I think these are things which are very important to look at, that how Pakistan is going to compete, or how Pakistan is going to engage. The only way is that, for me, as a student of politics, I believe that Pakistan cannot compete with this West-backed, what Pakistan says, the Indian military buildup. The only thing what is important for Pakistan is to engage more with the West. That is what is going to give us a lot of value. That is going to give us relevance, and that is going to give us connectivity. Because what we have seen with this CPAC thing, the Pakistan's Economic Affairs Advisory, I think they recently gave a statement that out of the what they call $35 billion, $15 billion investment is flawed. So with the American, if you Pakistan is dealing with the Europe and the America, they transfer technology, they transfer information, they equip and they train people. They just do not come with the flawed projects, and this has been a history here. So there is a lot of development which is going on in the region. All what Pakistan needs is to engage with the West, and for that matter, the politicians must be told to behave, because politicians, for their domestic political gains, they try to damage or tarnish the image of the state, and they distance the state from the West, on the Western parts, to whom we have been fighting this war against terrorism since 2002. So this has been 20 years game. We have 20 years of Pakistan's we have given to the West, and before that during the Cold War. So the best of the best is to engage, not to disengage, as if I take the words from the foreign minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. But the statement that came from the National Command Authority, that has a lot of relevance and the value. Thank you very much.